Moscow has no intention of sending troops into Ukraine, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said. His comments came after the US and Russian presidents discussed a possible diplomatic solution to the crisis. The US-backed plan calls for Russia to halt to its military buildup on the border with Ukraine and withdraw its troops in Crimea to their bases. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Paris on Sunday. Reports say Mr. Kerry was flying home from the Middle East on Saturday when he abruptly changed travel plans and instructed his plane to fly to Paris. Tensions over Ukraine rose following the overthrow of pro-Kremlin Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych in February, following months of street protests. Moscow later intervened in Crimea, a predominantly ethnic Russian region of Ukraine where its troops are stationed, saying the takeover in Kiev was a pro-fascist coup. Russia then annexed Crimea after the region held a referendum which backed joining the Russian Federation. Western countries condemned the vote as illegal and imposed sanctions on members of Mr. Putin's inner circle. Meanwhile, Ukraine's interim authorities have been pressing ahead with elections due in May. On Saturday, boxer and opposition leader Vitaly Klitschko pulled out of the race for president. He announced he was supporting billionaire Petro Poroshenko, saying, "The only chance of winning is to nominate one candidate from the democratic forces." Former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko has also said she will stand diplomatic means. In an interview with state TV channel Rossiya 1 on Saturday, Mr. Lavrov said, "We have absolutely no intention of, or interest in, crossing Ukraine's borders." He added that Russia was ready to protect the rights of Russians and Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, using all available political, diplomatic and legal means. After the interview was broadcast, it emerged Mr. Lavrov had spoken by phone to Mr. Kerry, in a conversation that Russian officials said was initiated by the US. That call followed an hour-long phone discussion late on Friday between Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Barack Obama. Mr. Putin had contacted President Obama, according to U.S. officials. President Obama underscored to President Putin that the United States continues to support a diplomatic path, with the aim of de-escalation of the crisis, the White House said in a statement. President Obama made clear that this remains possible only if Russia pulls back its troops and does not take any steps to further violate Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. The U.S. proposal, developed in consultation with Ukraine and other European countries, includes halting the military buildup near Ukraine's border, the deployment of international monitors in Crimea to protect the rights of Russian speakers, and the return of Russian troops there to their bases. The Kremlin said that the Russian president had drawn Mr. Obama's attention to the continued rampage of extremists in Kiev and various regions of Ukraine. It said these individuals were committing acts of intimidation towards peaceful residents, government authorities and law enforcement agencies. With impunity, Russia's reported troop movements near Ukraine's eastern border, described by NATO as a huge military buildup, has triggered fears that Mr. Putin's interest in Ukraine is not limited to Crimea. The BBC's North America editor, Mark Mardell, said Friday night's phone call could indicate tentative progress towards a diplomatic solution, just when fears were growing in the West that Russia could be about to stage an invasion of eastern Ukraine.